Welcome, listeners, to another episode on Rising Above Shadows of Abuse, RASA. I'm your host, Grace O Ovba. The newsreel is from The Telegraph, dated 8th of January 2025, by Sam Ashworth-Hayes and Charlie Peters. The child victims of rape were denied justice and protection from the state to preserve the image of a successful multicultural society. Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips' decision to block a public inquiry into the Oldham grooming gang seems from the outside to be most inexplicable. Children were raped and abused by gangs of men, while the authorities failed to protect them. A review of the abuse in Oldham was released in 2022, but its terms of reference only stretch from 2011 to 2014. Survivors from the town said that they wanted a government-led inquiry to cover a longer period and catch what the previous review had missed. In Jess Phillips' letter to the council, revealed by Great Britain News, she said she understood the strength of feeling in the town, but thought it best for another local review to take place. This is a scandal that should be rooted out entirely and investigated by the full might of the British state. Voices ranging from Elon Musk to Kemi Badenoch have joined the calls for an inquiry, yet the government seems curiously reluctant to dig into the failings of officials. This reluctance is not new. Across the country, in towns and in cities, on our streets and in the state institutions designed to protect the most vulnerable members of our society, authorities deliberately turned a blind eye to horrific abuse of largely white children by gangs of men, predominantly of Pakistani heritage. Over time, details have come to light about abuse in Rotherham, in Telford, in Rochdale, and in dozens of other places. But with the stories released in drips and drabs, and the details so horrific as to be almost unreadable, the full scale of scandal has still to reach the public. The following paragraph makes for difficult reading, but you should read it if you can. It's drawn from Judge Peter Rook's 2013 sentencing of Mohammed Parr in Oxford. Mohammed prepared his victim for gang and rape by using a pump. You subjected her to a gang rape by 5 or 6 men. At one point, she had 4 men inside her. A red ball was placed in her mouth to keep her quiet. Her story is horrific. It is also far from unique. Take Anna from Bradford, vulnerable and in residential care at the age of 14, had made repeated reports of rape, abuse, and coercion. When she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding, a social worker attended the ceremony. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her husband's parents. In Telford, Lucille died at 16 alongside her mother and sister when her abuser set fire to their home in 2000. She had given birth to Azhar Ali, Mahmoud's child, when she was just 14 and was pregnant when she was killed. Her death was subsequently used to threaten other children. The Telford inquiry found particularly brutal threats when one victim, aged 12, told her mother and the mother called the police. There was about 6 or 7 Asian men who came to my house. They threatened my mom, saying they will petrol bomb my house if we don't stop the charges. Yet, in a pattern that would repeat itself, Telford's authorities looked the other way. When an independent review was finally published in 2022, it found police officers described parts of the town as a no-go area, while witnesses set out multiple allegations of police corruption and favoritism towards the Pakistani community. Regardless of the reason, the inquiry found that there was a nervousness about race, bordering on a reluctance to investigate crimes committed by what was described as the Asian community. Similar concerns applied to the council, where anxieties over appearing racist saw safeguarding officers waving away concerns simply because the perpetrators were Asians. It was felt that some suspects were not investigated because it would have been politically incorrect. This is not to say that the council did nothing. Aware that the taxi drivers were offering children rides for sex, in 2006, it suspended licensing enforcement for drivers, allowing high-risk drivers to continue practicing. As the Telford inquiry found, this was born entirely out of fear of accusations of racism. It was craven. And above all, there was the concern over community relations. Senior council staff were terrified that the abuse of children had the potential to start a race riot. The result was stasis. Despite officials acknowledging in at least one case that abuse by Asian men had gone on for years and years, if it had at least 1,000 girls were abused in the town between 1980 and 2009. Yet even this conservative estimate was disputed by authority figures, with West Mercia Police Superintendent Tom Hardin insisting in 2018 the figures was sensationalized. The independent review later found it entirely plausible. Denial about the extent of the problem is rooted deep in Britain's political system. At times, it appears that the government approach to multiculturalism is not to uphold the law, but instead to minimize the risk of unrest between communities. Confronted with gangs of predominantly Pakistani men targeting predominantly white children, the state knew exactly what to do for the good of community relations. It had to bury the story. In Rotherham, a senior police officer told the distressed father that the town would erupt if the routine abuse of white children by Pakistani heritage men became public knowledge. One parent concerned about a missing daughter was told by the police that an older Asian boyfriend was a fashion accessory for girls in the town. The father of a 15-year-old rape victim was told the assault might mean she could learn her lesson. The ordeal had been so brutal that she required surgery. As the 2014 J inquiry into Rotherham found, children were doused in petrol and threatened with being set alight, threatened with guns, witnessed brutally violent rapes, and were threatened that they would be the next victim if they told anyone. Girls as young as 11 were raped by large numbers of male perpetrators, one after the other. In the same town, a senior police officer allegedly said the abuse had been going on for 30 years, adding, with it being Asians, we cannot afford for this to be coming out. As Louise Case's 2015 report on Rotherham's council found, this attitude was widespread. The Pakistani community accounted for around 13% of the town's population, and the story emerging was clear. Pakistani men were grooming white girls. As a result, one witness said the council was terrified of the impact on community cohesion. Across the town, pressure was put on people to suppress, keep quiet, or cover up issues around child abuse. A former senior officer told her review that X didn't want the town to become the child abuse capital of the North. They didn't want riot. If you want more on this story, kindly go to our research link on the podcast. Thank you. I'm too distressed to continue reading this. Thank you.